Welcome to Mojo Plays, and today we're going over Easter eggs, secret gameplay mechanics, and behind-the-scenes facts you may or may not know about The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword. But before we dive in, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Passing the torch. Every Nintendo fan knows the name Koji Kondo. His music has brought life to not only Zelda, but to the Super Mario series as well. Kondo had been the composer, and in some cases co-composer, on every console game in the series, save for Zelda 2 on NES. But when Skyward Sword entered production, he took on a more supervisory role. He actually only composed a single piece of music for the game, which plays during the prologue. He assisted by helping arrange pieces from the other composers, who were led by Hajime Wakai. While Wakai returned for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, again with other composers, Kondo seemingly said goodbye to the series here. The Sound of Triumph. This is a small one, but something that's easily missed by most players. During the opening, Link learns that his pet Loftwing has been taken and locked up by Groose and his cronies. He then confronts Groose about it, who refuses to back down until Zelda comes to Link's defense. As soon as she appears on screen, a short musical sound of triumph accompanies her. For whatever reason, the Zelda composers liked this enough to bring it back in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. The same thing plays every time Link successfully makes a meal. Designing the Loftwings. The Loftwings essentially took the place of horses in the new world of Skyward Sword, and unless you looked closely, you may have missed that several of them share physical features with their owners. Mostly, the feathers on their heads match their owner's hair. Oriel's Loftwing has braids, just like her. The Loftwings of Groose, Colin, and Stritch also have similar haircuts. Some characters style their Loftwings after them. Groose's bird wears a ring around its neck that matches his necklace. Similarly, Zelda and her Loftwing both wear belts made of golden medallions. A town of birds. Nintendo isn't above making the names of its characters puns, and in Skyloft, nearly every character is named after a bird. Some of these you probably picked up on. Owlin is named after an owl, Henya after a hen, and Aegis after an eagle. Others, though, are easier to overlook since they're named after far less common birds, depending on where in the world you live and how familiar with birds you are. Jacamar's name is only a slight misspelling of a bird native to South and Central America. Greba is named after the grebe, an aquatic bird. And Love and Birdie's names come from the lovebird, a small type of parrot. An embarrassing reveal. We got our first look at Skyward Sword's gameplay during E3 2010, and if you didn't pay attention to Nintendo's E3 showings, trust us when we say this was pretty embarrassing. First impressions are undeniably important, and this needed to show the new motion-centric direction in a good light. Unfortunately, as Shigeru Miyamoto walked viewers through Link's new mechanics, a room full of people using wireless devices caused a lot of technical interference. It was particularly painful when Miyamoto tried to show off the bow and arrow. In 2011, Nintendo would release its first Direct, and 2012 would be its final live show at E3. No one has ever said this was the reason, but since Zelda is one of Nintendo's most cherished franchises, we have to imagine it played a part.
Everything went really well in our rehearsals. You guys need to turn off all your wireless devices.
A touch of Mario. Zelda and Mario have often taken inspiration from or referenced each other over the years. With Skyward Sword, that inspiration showed up in an unexpected place. Most traditional games in the series featured areas that were physically connected, with Link simply traveling to them. But here, he would fly towards the other major areas from Skyloft, instead diving into them. In an Iwata Asks interview, producer Eiji Aonuma said the team was inspired by course selection from the Super Mario series when designing the sky. It's on a much grander scale, of course, but Link does jump directly into areas rather than travel to them. Skydiving buddies. Ringers are creatures that only appear in Skyward Sword, and players can go through the whole game without ever encountering them. Link must dive towards Pumpkin Landing from as high up as he can possibly get. As he falls, these flying squirrel-type critters will appear, forming a ring with him. If you can get all 10 in the ring before landing, they'll give you 20 rupees. Because they only appear in a small corner of the world, most players will miss them. Even still, that small of a reward hardly makes the process worth it. Impressionist inspiration. Zelda's visuals are ever-evolving, with many games taking on their own unique style. Eiji Aonuma originally planned to use the same visuals from Twilight Princess for Skyward Sword, but Miyamoto wanted something new, and what Miyamoto wants, Miyamoto gets. Skyward Sword is genuinely gorgeous and looks like a moving watercolor painting, but the visuals actually do have a real-world inspiration. Miyamoto looked towards Impressionism, believing it could capture exaggerated characteristics without looking too weird. For the game's mountains and sky, the team looked to the works of painter Paul Cézanne. The Sage Medallions. There are always details and Easter eggs within the Zelda series that can be easy to miss, even if they aren't necessarily hidden. Towards the end of the game, after Link collects the Triforce, the statue of Hylia falls from Skyloft down to the surface, inside of the sealed grounds. Once this happens, Girahim appears and kidnaps Zelda, taking her to the past. You're inclined to follow the story, but if you go outside and look at the ceiling of the newly reformed dome, you'll see something familiar. Along it are the various medallions of the sages as first seen in Ocarina of Time. Since this is the first chronological game, it implies Hylia had her own sages long in the past. Playing through the credits. At the end of a Zelda game, you might be inclined to just sit back and watch the credits, reflecting on the adventure you just partook in, and listen to some really great music. That might especially be the case for Skyward Sword, since they begin with showing Zelda's side of the story, which was initially planned to be a second playable campaign before those ideas were scrapped. However, unlike most others in the series, you don't have to just sit and watch. You can also play along to the music with the Goddess Harp, giving the ending music your own personal flair. The Moonlight Merchant. Throughout the game, you can find gossip stones that will give hints on what to do or where to go next. However, there's a specific one you can buy rare materials from that's easily missed. Befitting of its name, the Moonlight Merchant only appears at night. You'll find it in Skyloft inside the cave Link goes through during the game's opening section. There's no other reason to return to this cave after the opening, so a lot of people didn't know about the Moonlight Merchant's existence for a while. But if you don't feel like hunting for rare materials needed in later crafting stages, and you have the money for it, this is definitely a resource worth looking into. A Foul Attack. Inside the Faron Woods, you can find Gways, common recurring enemies across the series that resemble crows. In most games, and most of the time here as well, they'll dive bomb Link and are easily defeated by a simple sword swing. Most of us just swat them out of the sky without a second thought. However, if you let them fly around Link, they eventually drop, well, droppings on him. These don't hurt, but do drain the stamina meter until Link rolls or performs a spin attack to shake them off. It's the only game where they have this attack, and since your first instinct is to kill any enemy coming your way, which is easily done with the Gways, you may never experience it. An Extra Heart. Like many of its predecessors, you can find recovery hearts hidden in grass and pots throughout Skyward Sword. However, you'll also find them growing in forested areas like little helpful flowers just waiting to lend a hand. Interestingly, if one heart isn't enough for you and you happen to have a bottle full of water on hand, you can dump it on the stem, causing the heart to regrow, giving you double the amount of healing. Usually, bottles are best saved for potions and fairies, not water, so it isn't something most of us thought to do. Glittering spores. Sticking with secrets of the forest, you'll come across large, unique mushrooms that shine and glimmer. You can scoop their glittering spores into a bottle and then utilize them for a variety of uses. They can be useful in combat, stunning enemies to open them up for attacks, which also works on Skyloft's rimlets. They can also stun bugs as well as draw many of them closer to you. Pouring them onto a rupee can change its value, even the money-draining rupor. However, their best use is for pouring onto a recovery heart, which changes it into a fairy. Catching up. Taking the time to sit and relax on a stool can be beneficial in Skyward Sword, since it will cause Link to slowly regain health. However, if you sit next to an NPC, you'll also get hidden dialogue you wouldn't otherwise see. Doing so has no great effect on the story, but just serves as a small way to build the world. Maybe you want to sit and chat about things with the patrons in Skyloft Bazaar's diner, or maybe you want to hear Link get criticized by Old Lady Impa for sleeping too much. Funnily enough, if Link sits for long enough, he'll begin to drift off to sleep. Link's model number. Late in the game, Link must go on a mission to save the life of Lanayru, the Thunder Dragon, in the desert area. After doing so, when the dragon learns his name, he tries to give Link a model number like the robots found across the land. He asks him how he feels about LD-Link-16. LD obviously refers to the area, Lanayru Desert, but the 16 is an Easter egg. Skyward Sword was the 16th game released for the series. Even though he's the first Link chronologically, this is the 16th time we've played as him. The power of the net. Beginning with A Link to the Past, where Link could deflect Aghanim's attacks with a bug-catching net, it became a recurring joke that he could use regular objects in different ways against the big bad. We've talked in other videos about how Link can also deflect Demise's lightning attacks during the second phase. In fact, the net is the only way you can do this. But it's also helpful during the first phase. If you pull out the net in front of Demise, he'll get distracted. He won't attack at all unless you pull out the sword or move far enough away from him. A genderless companion. You might think Fi is a female companion, given the design and sound of their voice, and even other characters use female pronouns when speaking to them, such as Scrapper referring to them as mistress. But according to Eiji Aonuma, Fi is genderless. When speaking about the character during an interview with Nintendo Official Magazine, he stated, quote, "When the Skyward Sword is actively guiding Link, it actually transforms into a feminine figure. I wouldn't say that it's female per se, but it's a feminine figure. It makes sense. Fi is just a spirit created by the goddess Hylia, a manifestation of her will and physical representation of the sword. But that means most of us have been misgendering Fi for years. Ooh, sorry about that. Fi's design inspiration. Sticking with Fi, Nintendo went through several design concepts before settling on their final one. Anyone who's played The Wind Waker probably recognizes the facial and hair similarities between Fi and the Fairy Queen from that game. This was obviously on purpose, but there's another source of inspiration that was revealed in the compendium book, Hyrule Historia. Nintendo looked to 1980s anime, in which main characters were accompanied by beautiful personal assistants. Although no specific source was given, it's interesting to think about which anime could have served as the basis for Fi. The Spider's Thread. The ancient Cistern is often considered the best dungeon of Skyward Sword, and one of the best in the whole series. One of the coolest things about it is the design and aesthetic that draws from Eastern religion. But Nintendo went a step further. At a certain point, Link descends into the depths of the dungeon, encountering cursed, undead bokoblins. He escapes by climbing a thread back to the top, with enemies climbing after him. This is based on a short story called The Spider's Thread, originally published in 1918. In it, Buddha peers into the underworld and sees a criminal who once spared the life of a spider. He lowers a thread down to try to save this man, but as the criminal climbs, others begin to follow. He states the thread is meant only for him, though it snaps as soon as he does, due to him only caring about his own salvation. Thankfully, Link is pretty pure of heart. Do you know of any other interesting facts players might not know about Skyward Sword? Share them with us in the comments, and we'll see you next time.